1 hour of interesting maps. Great Britain, UK, and the British Isles. Okay, so if you're talking about Scotland, England, and Wales, that is apparently Great Britain. But if you're talking about Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, that is the United Kingdom. Which is quite ironic considering most of Ireland did not want to be united with the rest of Great Britain. But if you're talking about Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland, that is the British Isles. Yeah, that is definitely confusing. 2024 is a worldwide election year. It has just happened to line up that there are 64 different countries in the world that all have a national election this year. Perhaps this is a real opportunity for some actual positive global change. Probably not, though. The size of the Roman Empire at its height compared to the United States. That's actually quite interesting to see. So yeah, Roman Empire at its height basically covered all of the countries surrounding the Mediterranean. And in terms of scale, that's pretty much the size of the entirety of the United States of America, which is rather large. Yeah, they really knew what they were doing. Countries that drive on the left versus driving on the right. So 69% of the world drives on the right, which is a lot. That's 165 countries. The UK really is doing its own thing here when you look at the rest of Europe. Why don't we just switch to driving on the right like everyone else? What's the worst that could happen? I'm sure that wouldn't cause absolute carnage. Poverty in South America. This one's actually really sad because normally when you see a poverty map, when there's a 10-year difference, the amount of poverty's generally gone down, but in this case, in South America, it's actually gone up. And that's in every single country, some of which particularly bad. Like Argentina, it's gone from 4% to 36%. What are people saying? What's the reason for this? Okay, obviously there are tons of reasons, but COVID was a big one. Apparently inflation in the US also caused problems to developing countries, and lots of other things, but hopefully things improve soon. The world 250 million years from now. Oh, this is an enhance. Well, it turns out it's not really great quality for an enhance. But either way, the continents will all have squished about, and Paris and London will technically be connected. Not that there will be a London and Paris in 250 million years. Cairo and Moscow, they're just side-by-side capitals. That's crazy. Tokyo, we can actually still see remnants of the shape of Japan there, I think, but it is completely squashed into the rest of China, as has Australia too. And Antarctica not looking that chilly anymore. That's crazy, isn't it? Will there still be humans in 250 million years? Presumably not. I mean, I guess there might be somewhere else in space at that point, but that's so far in the future that would they still be classed as humans? I don't know. Stop asking me. I can't answer these questions. Foreign cuisines that tend to be popular. Italy taking Europe by storm. Apparently in United Kingdom, Indian is the #1, which is interesting. I mean, yeah, I do really like having an Indian takeaway, but my go-to cuisine would definitely be Italian. Oh, it's just delicious. Is that Suriname over in what? Belgium? I did not see that coming. Comparing US states to entire countries by GDP. Oh my god. So this is saying that just Texas has a GDP equivalent to the entirety of Canada. 1.73 trillion. And just California has a GDP $2.8 trillion, which is equal to the United Kingdom. This is absolutely crazy. Even smaller states like Wyoming have GDPs equal to Singapore, which is like a pretty strong economy. 300 billion. My god. Then following a similar theme, these three regions make up 50% of world GDP. So that's England, a bunch of Europe, less than half of the USA, a teeny bit of China, and half of Japan. That is a lot of global power to hold, considering how many people live in these grey areas. Most common immigrant in Germany. Wow, what a beautifully detailed map. We've got a lot of regions here. You can see that generally it's dominated by Turkish immigrants. Also a few Russian, a couple of Ukraine. We've got USA in this region, which is interesting. And then quite a lot of Vietnam too. Can we get some info in the comments? Unsurprisingly, the region for the cluster of Americans is because of US military bases. And the reason for lots of Turkish migrants in Germany is because they were encouraged into the country due to a shortage of manpower. And understandably, over time, people have settled and started families, etc. Map of nicknames for states and provinces in USA and Canada. Oh, this is a pretty looking map. Enhance. Ah, that's delightful. We've got drawings of polar bears and everything. Northwest Territory is a nickname land of the polar bear. Inuit Territory is nicknamed Our Land, which is nice, isn't it? Now, let's scroll down into the US. The Golden State, that's California. Oh, Pelican State, which is that? Is that Louisiana? Yes, it is. I can see the text. I saw a pelican try and eat a child once in Australia. It was unreal. Oh, okay. New York is nicknamed the Empire State. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I see what they did there. Jewish population in Europe, 1933 compared to 2015. So nearly 100 years later, Jewish population hasn't even remotely recovered from the impact of the Holocaust. That is so sad. And it's not just the Holocaust, of course. I think there's been lots of other factors over the years, but that is crazy how low the numbers still are. Favorite vacation countries based on the most common country people stay at for leisure. So United Kingdom, that's Spain. That aligns with me. I've been to, I think, 3 different Spanish holidays. Interestingly, people in France holiday in France, which is quite nice, isn't it? A lot of these countries near Greece holiday in Greece, which makes a lot of sense. Turkey's another country that prefer to holiday in Turkey. Thinking about it, if my own country's up for grabs, then I have holidayed in the UK way more than I've holidayed in Spain. How many wolves are there in European countries? This is a cool looking map. Look at this big wolf down here. So there are now 0 wolves in the British Isles. That's a shame. Although I don't think my dog Kong would like them. There's still 70,000 in Russia, which is epic, isn't it? And 7,000 in Turkey, which I wouldn't have thought of. There's actually way more in the rest of Europe than I ever would have anticipated. I genuinely would have only expected within Europe them to be like quite a few up in the north, like Siberia and stuff, but they're bloody everywhere. You can't move for wolves. A map of European supermarkets. Right, here we go. There are Lidls over basically everywhere in Europe. There is an Auchan in a lot of countries, but not the UK, hence why I've not heard of them. Same with Maxima. Villa, not really getting anywhere. Metro, I have not heard of, but you can see they're dominating a lot of Europe. Kaufland, with a name like that, you expect them to be in Germany. Tesco! Tesco not actually got that much control over Europe, but they are my go-to, so I got a bit excited there. Then we've got Carrefour and Aldi. I've been in quite a few Aldis in my time, but I'm definitely a Tesco boy. The largest generation in every European country. Europe has the oldest population in the world. This is really interesting to see. Most people in this continent were born between 1944 and 1964 because people are just living for a long time these days, and people are starting to have less kids and stuff. I mean, when you see this data, it starts to explain why things like getting on the property ladder are so difficult. These days, for people in the UK, the best chance they've got at getting a house is inheriting one, which is just a really depressing reality. Countries which have capybaras. They're capybaras, right? So lots of countries have them in zoos. Look at that one stretched over Russia. Lots of countries have them in zoos. A lot of Africa doesn't have any capybaras anyway. But in South America, there's still actually a few in the wild, which I'm guessing is that's because that's where they're native to. I actually thought they were native to Australia. Yeah, they're from South America. I'm totally wrong. I was sure of that. I think I just saw them in a zoo in Australia, and I may be getting confused. Nearly half of Americans will have obesity by 2030. I can't look at a map of the USA anymore without seeing that stupid fella holding the fried chicken. Ongoing civil wars. So since 1991, there has been a civil war in Somalia, and also in Syria, Mali, Central African Republic, Yemen, Ethiopia, Myanmar, and Sudan. And I knew about basically none of them. There are people just out there fighting or living unsafely, and we're just going about our business. It's really quite sad to think about. Whoa, 1 billion years of plate tectonics. That's a moving map. Oh, this is so satisfied. All right, it has been 200 million years ago at this point, and I don't really recognize anything yet. Oh my god, this is unreal. Oh, here we go. Yep, I can see India just drifted from... Oh, it's reset. It was just getting good. We're gonna watch India drift from the rest of... There it is. That's India, and then America's down here, and it's going... And it's getting sucked into the rest of Asia. Incredible. The most bizarre human world records. Oh, here we go. Are there any of these I could attempt? Fastest motorcycle driven blindfolded to 260 kilometers an hour. I'll leave that one. Most pubs visited in a day by one person. 44,000? How do you do that in a day? Of course, that's the English record on the map. Furthest swim under ice. That was in the Netherlands. Most bizarre human diet. He ate 18 bikes and a plane. Right. The oldest human was 122. That was in France. Longest time holding breath is 37 minutes. What? Longest human nose is a fella in Turkey. Oh, there could be a lady in Turkey. It doesn't say. Tallest living woman was in Turkey. And tallest living man. Isn't that interesting? What's the science behind all 3 of those records being in Turkey? Most popular console in every state. The Switch dominates quite a bit, as does PS5 and the Xbox X. Are there any obscure ones anywhere? Yes. Is that an Xbox 360? No, it's an Xbox One. Which state's that? Pennsylvania, maybe? No, it's West Virginia. Pennsylvania's up there. My assumption would be that people perhaps just have a bit less money in West Virginia compared to some of the other states, so they just can't afford the latest console. And there's also a PS4 down here as well, which is probably the same kind of reason. Generally, they will be in groups, which you can see has happened with the Xbox X, because people generally going to get the same console as their friends who are their neighbors, and it just kind of spreads. Where music artists are more popular in the US, Beyonce has a pretty good spread there. Taylor Swift. That's really interesting how she sways over to the West. You would think Taylor Swift, perhaps coming from a country background, she'd be more popular in the South, but I guess her music's maybe shifted. There are so many to go through here, so I'll just click and you can pause, because I'm not going to be able to get through all of these. I can't talk something interesting about each one of these. All right. There you go. How to say lion in the predominant language of each country. So in the United Kingdom, it is lion. In France, it is lion. In Spain, it is leon. In Portugal, it is leão. In Italy, it's leon. In Norway, it's love. In Sweden, it's leon. In Finland, it's leona. In Russian, it's lev. In Belarus, it's rev. In Poland, it's Lou. In Ukraine, it's lev. In Turkey, it's Aslan. That's why he's called Aslan in Narnia. Countries visited by Queen Elizabeth II. I tell you what, she got about, didn't she? 117 total countries. That is a crazy amount. Seatbelt laws in the US. Okay, so in New Hampshire, you don't have to wear a seatbelt. Why would that be a rule? There's no reason to not just make it mandatory. It makes no difference to like your convenience or whatever. What? Generally though, in all of the states where it's green, you could be ticketed for not wearing a seatbelt, which obviously is what it should be. In the orange states though, you can only be pulled over and ticketed if there is another violation of the law. That makes no sense. What is the logic to that? Just put your seatbelt on, man. Ending of place names in Poland. So up in the north of Poland, all of these red dots, there is a place that ends with a war. Whereas in the south of Poland, place names predominantly end with ow. That is some real geography and history right there. I don't understand any of it, but it's still interesting to look at. The world according to fish. Oh, that is incredible. Enhance, enhance. So we're seeing the world centered around the oceans. So we've got Antarctica in the middle, and then this massive area is the Pacific Ocean. Over here on the right, we've got the Atlantic Ocean, and that kind of shows you how much smaller the Atlantic Ocean is than the Pacific Ocean, and also how much bigger the Indian Ocean is than you normally would assume. And all major rivers are included in this map as well, so the Nile, for example. This is a beautiful map. World map, true proportioned continents. More weird map projections. So this is the Mercator projection down in the bottom right. This is what you normally see on a world map. But this stretches and shrinks lots of different areas, so this is apparently way more accurate. And you can see how much smaller things like Greenland and the top of Canada look compared to on the Mercator projection. Like, look at the size of Greenland. It literally takes up so much space. And this also shows us, just like the previous map, how much of the world is ocean compared to land. This video has been going viral on Twitter about lasting differences between East and West Germany. Yeah, I've seen maps like this before. There are so many different things within Germany that follow historic borders between the East and the West. Look at everything. Trash, childcare, vaccinations, trailers, gender pay gap, graffiti, organs donated. They all follow the same styles. It's crazy. Arab colonialism. So in the year 540, Middle East was basically just where most of the Arabic population was. But these days, in 2022, Arabic people live in basically all of Northern Africa. Quite interesting to see Ethiopia doing its own thing there. I created a map of Europe with cookies. Why is it so good? That is so unbelievably accurate. Oh, I want to put my mouth around it right now. Oh, yeah, look at that. You must have done some delightful little stencils and then you've lined it all up and oh, it's beautiful. You let yourself down on Portugal though, actually, the more I look. There's no tectonic plates there. You're not fooling anyone. US state mottos. I always find it so cute how the US states and even towns and counties have like designated animals and catchphrases and flags. Like we do that nowhere near to the same extent in the UK. California's state motto is Eureka, which means I've found it. Texas's state motto is friendship. Well, that's sweet, isn't it? Under God's the people rule, equality before the law, equal rights, industry, all for our country, union, justice, confidence, in God we trust. Generally speaking, rather positive mottos. Whoa, countries that have been under European control. This is basically showing that everywhere in the world has been in some way influenced by Europe, whether positively or negatively. Green represents land that was colonized or controlled by Europe. That is awful, isn't it? It is so much of the world. Very few places that have never been impacted, such as Japan and the Koreas and Myanmar. And then what's that little dinky fella in Africa? Liberia? Yes, Jack knows things. Literal names of countries. Ah, we are getting some incredible maps this video. So, United States of America literally just means the United States of America. But Canada apparently translates to the village, which is interesting because it's quite a bit larger than a village. Mexico is in the navel of the moon. Then we've got lots of Caribbean countries. St. Lucia would be land of St. Lucy. Makes sense. Land of the Savior is El Salvador. Land of many trees, Guatemala. It's really interesting seeing where places got their names. What else have we got? We've got South America. Uruguay meant river of shellfish. So basically what happens a lot of the time is entire countries just get named off what the person that first saw the land saw first. So Chile being essentially the last bit of land to the west translates from where the land ends, which is really interesting. And I know that Venezuela means Little Venice because the person that first discovered the land, well, the person that came from from Europe and discovered the land. Spotted little houses built on the water that reminded him of Venice. Norway means northern way. Sweden, land of the sphere. Finland just means land. That's interesting. Cyprus, island of copper. Land of many rabbits. Spain. Did not see that coming. Oh, I could look at those names all day, but we need to move on. Countries the Cold War divided. And I don't really know that much about the Cold War other than like the big things. So I don't actually know why these countries were impacted, but it seems they've made some serious lasting effects. Things like North Korea and South Korea. And then West Germany and East Germany. Obviously, we've seen all of the impacts that have happened there. What are the European countries called Germany? So the UK called Germany Germany. Germany calls Germany Deutschland. Italy calls them Germania. France go with Alemannia. Alemania. Alemania. Germania. 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 Alemania. Nemesnia. Nemexia. Nemisi. Nemeko. Nemiko. Nemetozog. Nemsija. Nishmaka. Nishmaka. Nimaka. Voketia. Vaxia. Saxama. Saxa. Duska. I'm not even going to attempt that one. The world's top selling car brands. Okay, we have Volkswagen in Germany. Hyundai in Spain. What's UK? I can't actually read it. Nissan. Alright, fair enough. Volkswagen in Ireland as well. The Russian one, I don't even recognize. I'm not sure where that is. We've got a lot of Toyota over in this part of Europe. Tesla have Switzerland, which is interesting. And BMW's only appearances in Belgium. Is your country singular or plural in Polish? That's one of the most difficult things about learning a new language. Having to remember things like plurals and masculine or feminine. Oh, it's a nightmare. I don't know why he went with bananas for this representation, but we can see that generally everywhere in the Polish language is defined as a singular country. But Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Czechia, and where's that? It's Hungary, I've just remembered. They're the only countries that you have to say with a plural, which I don't know Polish, so I don't quite know what that means. What's across the ocean from you? Oh, I haven't seen this map in ages. It's a really good one. I always forget that Canada and the UK are level with each other. It always feels like Canada should be up here and the UK should be a bit further down. But Europe is so much more northern than the Americas when you actually look at this. It's so interesting to look at. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of would have always just assumed that Florida, for example, would be level with kind of Spain, United Kingdom. But Florida's mostly level with Morocco. Also quite interesting to see from the other side that China and Mexico are level with each other. Same with Japan. Then we've got Australia level with a big chunk of the middle of South America. Most populous city by country. So all of the green countries in Europe are countries where the capital city is the most populated city. Whereas the three red countries are countries where the capital city is not most populated. So for example, Ankara is the capital of Russia, but Istanbul is the most populated city. The world at 180. This requires an enhance. The quality is too low. I can't read any of the words. But I guess generally it means that these areas aren't really inhabited yet, but that can't be right. Humans have been kicking about for 200,000 years, starting in this area. But these are the only areas that are kind of defined as countries or civilizations at this point in time. Help me date this globe found in my new classroom. Is it a globe if it's not round? It's more of a map on a chest, really, isn't it? Go on then, let's see if myself, with my poor knowledge of history, can date this. Alright, so Yugoslavia in Europe. I think that broke up in like 1991, maybe? Germany, Poland's kicking about. Scotland's not defined, but I'm guessing it existed. Africa's still called French West Africa. We've got some other bits. I don't think it's that old. I am going to say that this is from the 1980s. The middle of 1939. I really know my stuff. So Yugoslavia broke up 1992, which is 1 year out from what I said. But that's basically the only thing I used to date the map, which means it's any point older than 1992. But for some reason, I saw that as it must be around the same time. Oh, whatever. This is interesting. Usual name order in European countries. I did not know this. So most of Europe just has the first name and then their surname, you know, Jack Welsh. But in Hungary, you say the surname and then the first name, like Welsh Jack. In Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, you say the first name, the father's name, and the surname. Is that just the norm? In Iceland, it's first name, then father's name? As in father's surname or father's first name? And then does that change if you get married or whatever? Spain, first name plus father's surname plus mother's surname. Well, it's good to see that the mother gets a look in down in Spain. Then Portugal also has mother's surname, but it has it before father's surname. This is crazy. Topography of Indian subcontinent. Whoa, look at that. Very large areas, completely flat in the north. So interesting to see how quickly when the Himalayas turn up, the topography just goes crazy. I guess that's because the land that's now Indian India was originally attached to Africa, and it slowly split off and worked its way over here, and then smashed into this tectonic plate, creating the Himalayas. But yeah, that's really cool to see. Europe's longest flights to each continent. This is interesting. So we could do a one-way flight, 14 hours from London to South America, Chile. You could also go from Turkey to Mexico, from Netherlands to South Africa. That's mad. From Perth to London as well, and then from somewhere north of London, maybe Manchester or something, you could get straight to Singapore. One flight. That's crazy. Most used apps to message each other in 2023. I'm personally a WhatsApp fella these days. Viper. Who uses Viper? Okay, a bunch of the Balkans apparently. Telegram's quite popular over in the east, and Messenger actually kind of darting through the middle. Iceland doesn't live there. What's Iceland doing down there? European countries where voting is compulsory. So more or less all of Europe, it isn't compulsory. In Switzerland, compulsory in certain areas, and then it is compulsory to vote once you're eligible in Russia, in Greece, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Is it a good thing to have compulsory voting? Because it is annoying in the UK when there's like issues that need sorting out, but then a bunch of people don't turn up to vote. And at the same time, I'm curious what the impact would be. It's probably better how it is, but you should just really encourage people to vote once they can. Europe divided by equal GDP. Okay, so there's 6 regions, and they all have basically the same collective economy size. So the blue's just 4 countries: Iceland, UK, Ireland, and Denmark. But these 4 countries are equal in GDP to basically the entirety of Eastern Europe, which is about 20 countries. And I assume it'd probably be pretty similar if it was just the UK. Oh, did not notice Germany. That's not even the entirety of Germany. They've got the biggest GDP on there. I didn't realize France's GDP was as big as that as well. Not even the entirety of France. Obviously, we've got Netherlands and Belgium and Luxembourg shoved in. But yeah, I think what this map's showing is just how poor Eastern Europe currently is. People's reaction when you start speaking their language. Okay, so in English-speaking countries, if you as a foreigner start speaking English, it is so normalized that people aren't impressed at all. Over in countries like Germany, Sweden, and Norway, the reaction is apparently, that's cute, but let's just speak English, shall we? A lot of the Southern European countries, the reaction is, you just said one word in my language and we're officially best friends forever now. It's cute, isn't it? I think it's really nice, particularly as an English person. It's really nice to make an effort to embrace other cultures and other languages, because us English people can just get away with making no effort at all. In a lot of Northern Eastern Europe, the reaction is, congrats, but why'd you put yourself through this? Yeah, I have seen that things like Russian are very, very difficult to learn. And the French apparently do not want non-French people to speak French. According to this map, I'm sure there's exceptions. Countries where it is illegal to spank/smack children. So apparently it is legal to spank your children in England? I did not know that. They passed a law in Wales to officially ban it starting 2022. A lot of the world, as you can see, you can hit your children if you want. That's awful. I felt horrible saying that. There are surely better alternatives to teaching good behavior in your children. That is ridiculous. Which countries are Russian passport holders not allowed to enter? So many neighboring countries have completely banned Russians from accessing their country. And it's just really sad, isn't it? Because obviously, the people in charge of Russia currently, they're awful. They're causing a right ruckus. But it causes people to be horrible to all Russians, and that is just not the case. I'm sure there are literally millions of people in Russia that are totally against the war on Ukraine and any other bad things that Russia are doing. These days, my biggest audience on my main channel, JackSucksAtLife, comes from Russia due to my Russian audio tracks. If there are hundreds of thousands of Russians out there sat enjoying JackSucksAtLife's play button YouTube videos, then there is no way they are also at the same time just hating the rest of the world. And I just feel so sorry for all of the countries out there that just have people in charge that are awful. I mean, I suppose thinking about it, we can kind of relate to that. Most popular metal band of each country according to Spotify. Ooh, go on, enhance. Turns out I can't enhance. The quality's literally awful. I can't really see anything in Europe other than Black Sabbath. Slaughter to Prevail is the Russian lead. That is an incredible name. But Metallica have got the lead in the USA, so I guess nothing else matters. 1300s Netherlands map compared to 1900s 2000s Netherlands map. Yeah, they have recovered a lot of their land. And is it just due to their flood management techniques? I mean, they've really made the most of it, to be fair. US counties where the African American population is 25% or more. And you can see it is very much limited to this specific area of the South. You see this kind of thing all over the world. It is just crazy, the long-term impacts that things that have happened in history still have today, just hundreds of years later. Like, presumably, it's going to take another 1,000 years or so for these sort of systemics to disappear. Number of Nobel Prize winners in each European country. All right, who has had the most? The United Kingdom, okay, and then who's had the least? There's a few ones out there. We've got Slovakia, we've got Bulgaria, we've got Latvia. Is that Latvia or is that Lithuania? I can never remember. Yeah, it's Latvia. Step it up, Latvia. What are you doing, bro? The most western point in China is closer to Germany than the most eastern point in China. Wow, that's crazy. 4,600 kilometers to get to Germany compared to 4,800 to get to the other side of China. China is wide. That's why the fact that it only has one time zone is particularly crazy. Where water stress will be highest by 2050. Projected ratio of human water demand to water availability, brackets the water stress level in the year 2050. Alright, well, that's something to look forward to. Good job, human race. World map according to Bhutan. This is countries that Bhutan recognizes. That's interesting. This is Bhutan, by the way, if you're not sure, little fella near the Himalayas. They only recognize 54 countries. UK, not one of those. USA, not one of those. That's so interesting. It's part of a deliberate isolationist policy of limiting foreign influence in the state. So they don't want any outside influence, so they've decided to just pretend that we don't exist. Fair enough. The European route, E45, is the longest north to south European route with 5,190 kilometers, which is 3,000 miles, and it starts all the way up in Norway and it ends at the bottom of Italy. In a different timeline, that's a JackSucksAtGeography video, just vlogging me doing this route. Wouldn't that be incredible? I've got to start doing things like that. Language difficulty ranking as an English speaker. Okay, so once again, the more east you get, apparently the harder it is to learn the language, with exceptions in Kosovo and Romania. We've got a lot of ones. Germany is a 2, which is annoying because I'm learning Germany. Why did I pick the slightly more difficult one? I do find the different genders that words have very difficult to get. That's where I'm kind of losing the will to live when learning German. Non-European countries closest in land area to each European country. Oh, this looks like a good map. That is getting an enhance. Do you know what? I don't think I understand this. I literally don't know what I'm looking at. Non-European countries closest in land area to each European country. Oh, in terms of size, not in terms of location to each other. Right, that makes way more sense. I thought they were saying that Guinea was the closest non-European country to the United Kingdom, and I was like, what? Okay, so apparently the United Kingdom and Guinea in Africa are a similar size. Botswana is a similar size to France. I would have thought Botswana was quite a bit bigger. Madagascar is a similar size to Ukraine. That's interesting. Oman, that's a surprising one. Oman I think of as quite small, but obviously here it looks quite big. Obviously there's a bit of distortion up in the north. Japan's a surprising one. I would have thought Japan was way larger than Norway, but apparently they are similar sizes. Switzerland and Bhutan being a similar size, that one I do not find a surprise. Bangladesh and Greece, that's surprising once again. This really shows you it is just really difficult to kind of directly compare different countries in scale from different parts of the map. Access to electricity per African country. This is going to be a sad one. So Northern Africa, basically everyone's got access to electricity, which is fantastic. But then in countries like DRC, it's as low as 9%. Oh my god, 1%. Where's that? Is that South Sudan? No access to electricity. That is crazy. It's 2024, guys. Obviously, there are ways to survive comfortably without electricity. I'm not denying that. However, my assumption is the people in South Sudan are not currently surviving comfortably. I know there's literally a war going on there. Percentage of internet users per African country is quite similar. There are a few differences, like, whoa, is that Algeria? No, that's Algeria. That's Libya, right? I often get those two mixed up. Yeah, it's Libya. So compared to the neighbors, Libya have loads of electricity, but less interest in the internet, which is not necessarily a bad thing in that specific scenario. Average number of kids per women per country. Once again, Northern Africa just showing signs of far more development. A lot of the continent having a lot of children per person, which of course is sometimes a choice, but my assumption in this scenario is that it's because of a lack of things like birth control, protection, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, this map shows the poverty level, and you can see a lot of Africa, most of Africa in fact, still basically in poverty, which is very, very sad. Government's position on the Iraq war prior to the invasion that started 21 years ago today. So the orange are countries that participated, that includes the United Kingdom. Yellow were in support. Blue are countries that were opposed to the invasion, which is a lot of countries. Why can't we all just be like Bhutan and just pretend that no other countries exist, so then you don't have to invade anyone, you know? European countries by World War II casualties. We can see casualties across all of Europe, but look at the difference in Russia or Soviet Union. 20 million compared to next highest, which is 6.9 million in Germany. 20 million? That's insane. Global distribution of penguins. Ah, finally. They've all been way too heavy, the maps today. What did I title this video at the beginning? I hope it wasn't Maps I Find Epic. The global population of penguins penguins is a very cool thing to see. You can see they are entirely in the southern hemisphere. Oh, maybe. We might just dip up in Ecuador, Galapagos Islands. But yeah, look at that. We've got penguins all down the south of Australia, all of New Zealand. This little dot is the Galapagos Islands. A few in Africa as well, and then tons in Antarctica. Oh, that's amazing. Google searches for skin tanning / skin whitening. I didn't even know skin whitening was a thing. But it's exactly what you think it is. It's a cosmetic procedure that tries to get you a paler skin tone. I mean, the map makes perfect sense. All the pale people want to be darker, and all of the darker skinned people want to be paler. Well, not all, actually. Just the people that have actively gone to search one or the other. Countries mentioned in the Bible. That's rather interesting, isn't it? I mean, it makes perfect sense, obviously, based on where and when it was written. United Kingdom not mentioned in the Bible. Interesting. Ship logs from the 18th to 19th centuries versus 1945. Oh, this is a cool looking piece of data. So the black lines are routes that ships have done. So you can see the outlines of the continents are created, like Africa, South America. We can see back in the 18th and 19th century, we didn't have things like the Suez Canal. So if you wanted to sail from Europe to over here, you'd have to go around Africa, which is kind of crazy. You can see a lot of back and forth from US to Europe over the Atlantic. But then if we scroll down to 1945, you can see the continents are far better defined, and we actually have routes through Panama Canal and through Suez Canal as well, so you can skip going all the way around Africa. Oh, the side-by-side's actually really, really interesting to look at. Oceania if Zealandia never sank. So Zealandia is a continent that is now under the water, and that actually really switches things up. Modern day New Zealand is kind of this area here. So much land is submerged, and all of these little island countries like Tonga and Fiji actually become quite large countries that border each other. USA and Australia fit together almost perfectly. That is weird. Let me enhance. Look at the way it curves around Florida and the Carolinas and then all the way up to New York. The word soda takes over. So in 1947, you had a few areas of the US saying soda, but mainly it was pop and a lot of Coke. In 2023, soda's now the biggest of the three. In the UK, we don't say soda, we would say pop, I suppose. But for me anyway, it's not part of my common dialogue. I would just say specifically the thing I wanted, like a Coke or a Tangle. I feel almost lame saying that I would like a glass of pop, please. It makes me feel like I'm a 3-year-old. Taylor Swift's airplane travel history in 2023. She's just zipping about all over the place, back and forth. Oh my goodness. Sometimes for just really, really short trips as well. That's ridiculous, Taylor. There needs to be rules against this. Like, I understand if you're like a mega famous celebrity, it can be... look at that one! My goodness! We're nowhere near even denting it. Hang on, let's skip ahead a bit. There are some lines. Yeah, I understand being a massive celebrity, and it can be, like, frustrating if you've got lots of people looking at you, whatever, but you kind of gotta just get on with it and wear a hat if it's a short journey at the very least. Like, that is just ridiculous. My God. It's just so terrible for the environment. You can't allow this. Peak of largest empires in history. So this is the Mongol Empire and the British Empire. Mongol Empire managed to take over a huge quantity of the same region, but British Empire managed to just spread themselves around different spots. Both definitely caused a lot of harm and had a lot of negatives. I finished my Germany project and illustrated all the German federal states. Oh, it's so cute. What a fantastic art style. So it's the outline of the country, but we've got tons of references to Germany based on different areas. Ah, and they're all the specific shapes of the regions and represent something to do with each region, presumably. That's really, really clever. I like that. It looks incredible. Oh, look at that. Popular local beer brands of Europe. Okay, so obviously Ireland is Guinness. That makes sense. UK, John Smith's. I don't really know anyone other than my dad that drinks John Smith's. Heineken is from Netherlands. I honestly would have thought Heineken was German. Beck's is apparently German, which I really didn't think. I potentially would have even said that Beck's was English. But shows how wrong I am. Then we have quite a few that I have not heard of. Peroni, that would be my go-to beer, I think. That is from Italy. And Mythos, Greece. Only time I've ever had Mythos was when we got a free one with a Greek takeaway once. I like the look of Romania's Ursos. That looks badass. Evolution of high-speed railway lines in China. So in 2008, there really wasn't much at all. But in 2020, they have really kicked things up a notch. That is impressive. Is Egypt ruled by Egyptians? This is a really interesting type of graph. I've never seen this before. But we've got a timeline that incorporates the outline shape of the country. And we can see for about half of its history, Egypt was ruled by the Egyptians, with a blip during the Hyksos period, which I know nothing about. And then from basically 1000 BC, it has been controlled by many different people, such as the Romans, the British, the Ottomans. And then since 1952, it is back to the Republic of Egypt. And 1952 onwards represents this tiny little bit of green down there. That really puts this timeline into perspective. Population of Ireland 1841 versus modern date. This is really interesting. So you can see in most areas, the population's actually gone down a lot. You know, 855,000 down here compared to 500,000 now. However, area around Dublin has obviously skyrocketed. So 1.35 million people living in this city. What's the word for that? Is it urban sprawl? No, they're literally the opposite of urban sprawl. I mean, this is just explained by kind of jobs changing since the Victorian times. Farmers, blacksmiths, all that sort of stuff. You just need to live in your local area. Whereas now most jobs, they're in the big cities. Countries that have become independent from the United Kingdom. Oh my god, that's hideous, isn't it? There's just so many. So many. And it's so sad, particularly just how recent so many of these dates are. Like, a lot happened in the 60s. We've got 1978 there. We've got a lot of Oceania areas that are kind of 70s, 80s even. Requirements for entry into Japan. Alright, this is an enhance. So the dark green is visa free as long as you don't stay too long. Light green's visa free for 3 months. Saudi Arabia and South Africa can apply for an electronic visa with 90 days notice, so a bit trickier. But most of the world is grey, which is visa required and strict visa regime. Visa can only be issued by the Japanese embassy in exchange for documentation proving intent to return to the country of nationality. So they're really keeping their borders strict. And then there's one dark grey. They're literally not allowed into the country. Where is that? Ah, it's North Korea. Okay, that makes sense. Support for gay marriage in the United States. So we're starting as late as 1975 and still very, very little support. Let's see how quickly this takes over. And it seems to be coming from the West as well. Oh, hang on. By 1985, we've had a big revolution, which is nice. Numbers still very low. Actually, hang on. The percentage needs to get to like 100. I was thinking it was getting to 10. It is still incredibly low in that case. And we're in the 90s. This is just terrible, isn't it? Well, this is really sad. This is my lifetime now. And we have no numbers that are higher than 36 out of 100. I mean, it's easy to understand why this is. Like, I really like the sitcom Friends, but there are many jokes within that show that are just homophobic and at the expense of gay people. And that's just so wrong. And that was not that long ago. That show finished in 2004. I'm curious what it's going to get to by today. Oh, we actually have our first bit of green. Okay, it's 2005 now, 2010, but that's still only half of these areas, half the people in those areas anyway. 2010, 2015, it keeps going up, but as you can see, I think we're going to find that the USA still has a long way to go. And what are we ending on? The South still very old-fashioned there, ridiculous. The stink bug invasion. Oh my god. Okay, so they started in 2005 and they are spreading east quick. Oh, and they've already made it to the west coast too. Presumably made it onto some flights across or something. Oh my god, that's a scary looking map. Climate of Australia compared to the world. So most of the outback is the same temperature as the Sahara Desert, which is crazy. Hence why basically no one lives there and it's just a barren landscape. Apparently, Tasmania has a similar climate to Alaska, which I did not realize it would be that cold. Then this little tiny area, like around Canberra, that's Finland? A lot of this east coast is the same as England. I think Sydney's around this area. I don't know how accurate this is. I was in Sydney during the winter and it was still much warmer than the UK. I don't know if I believe this. I suppose it's got to be time of year dependent for each country and Australia. Luxembourg, Ireland and Switzerland are Europe's richest countries per capita. Wow, so Ireland now double the UK in terms of capita. And what is Luxembourg? Luxembourg 131,000. So which countries are lowest? We've got Ukraine down to just 6,000. That's a huge difference. Belarus 8,000, Russia 14,000. Big differences between the West and the East. The world according to Google Street View, May 2024. We've seen many of these maps over the years, but obviously this is literally this month. So this is the most up to date, and a lot of the world is now visible. Still lots of Africa that we cannot see. Europe basically entirely visible now, excluding Belarus it looks like. Do we have more coverage over Germany? I thought they got rid of a lot of the coverage. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see if they ever manage to get more of Africa visible. What a task that is though. though. That is crazy when you think about how big that place is. The Swiss plan announced by Libya's mad dictator Gaddafi at the UN. Wait, he wanted to get rid of Switzerland? In 2009, he submitted a proposal to the UN to abolish Switzerland and divide it up along linguistic lines, giving parts of the country to Germany, France, and Italy. Why? What has Switzerland done to Libya? Brazil overlaid onto Europe. Okay, it's flipped upside down, but wow. Look at the size of Brazil. Just this tiny area is the same size of Spain and Portugal. And this includes most of the Mediterranean Sea as well. So it looks like Brazil is basically the exact same size as Europe. How many years an area has been ruled by the Roman Empire? So it's highest in areas like Greece and Italy, obviously, 1,500 years there. Apparently they ruled England and Wales for 350 years, Northern England 300 years, and less than 50 years for some of Scotland. They never managed to take over all of it. We have a crazy length of time in these Northern African areas, like modern day Egypt, 750 years, which we did see reference to in that previous graph. Yeah, this is really interesting. They really had the Mediterranean on lockdown for a while. Wow, UK and Ireland from space. We have an actual real photograph. I've never seen it from that far away before. It is amazing to be able to actually see the outlines so perfect. That is a great distance. It was not very cloudy that day, was it? It's kind of yellow looking, isn't it? I thought it would be greener. Okay, it was taken during one of the hottest heat waves on record in England. So yeah, the grass had all just kind of burnt and yellowed. TikTok censorship. So a lot of the country has no censorship, but you can see that UK, France, Canada have banned TikTok on government phones. So you work at the government, you have a work phone, you can't have TikTok downloaded. Some areas have banned it completely but not enforced it, which I don't really understand. China have a full ban, but I thought TikTok was owned by China. That confuses me. India have also banned it as well. I did not know that. And the US obviously has a ban that's pending. It'll be interesting to see if that goes through. Countries with a smaller population than Java. This is mental, by the way. So Java is this small island in Indonesia, but 145 million people live there, which I think is more than every individual country in Europe, a bunch of Africa, and so many others, excluding basically the top 7 most populated countries. That's crazy. Countries with the most bald men in the world. Okay, so I guess this shows you're more likely to be bald if you're white, which I did not realize was a trait. Apparently the United Kingdom is at 40%. I am sort of slowly losing my hairline a bit, but not too bad at the moment. But it's so common, it's such a thing for men to be self-conscious about. I kind of feel like we need to stop being mean about it, to be honest. Most people, once they shave their head, they get a little mustache. They look pretty cool, in my opinion. Most valuable Italian brands. Right, there's lots of recognizable names here. Ferrari, Lamborghini, we've got Diesel, we've got Giorgio Armani, Alfa Romeo, Martini. They all sound so Italian as well. What have I not heard of? Carpisa. What do? They make handbags, I think. Yes, they do. Cool. Nearly 50 countries now generate more than 50% of their electricity from renewable energy sources. That is amazing to see. It's also pretty cool to see how many of those are in Africa, because normally Africa's left out of all of the positive maps. I wonder if it's solar power, you know, just with Africa being very sunny. See, I feel like UK could easily be on this list, and it is a shame that we are not at the moment. Which countries has the most vegetarians in Europe? So apparently there's only 10 vegetarians in the United Kingdom. I'm one of them. What is this, a percentage? Oh, it does say percent up the top, to be fair. Okay, so yeah, 1 in 10 people in the UK, 12% in Sweden, Finland. That's the highest. Still very low in places like Spain, but I think it'll just keep increasing. There are a lot of vegetarian options now where you can just have stuff that tastes like meat without killing anything. Where deserts can be found around the world. Quite an interesting way of looking at it. Obviously, Sahara Desert takes up all of this, but you can see that geologically, I presume there wasn't always this big gap. So the Sahara effectively does kind of just continue into Saudi Arabia, Oman, etc. I also didn't realize how off-center the outback was. I always kind of thought it was perfectly in the middle with a border around it, but you can see it goes quite a bit to the left and all the way to the coast. How many people have never used the internet? So we have no data for the UK, but we have a bit of orange for Ireland, which is 5 to 7% of the population. So very, very little now. Over 10% is what's interesting though, because that's quite a lot. And we can see Portugal's one of those countries, which is surprising. I'm curious why that is, if anyone knows in the comments. Animation of the tsunami generated by the 9.5 magnitude earthquake that occurred in southern Chile 1960. Oh my god, that's such a scary animation. It has gone so far as well. Like, that is traveling so far across the Pacific there. It's about to reach New Zealand. Like, you've got to actually try and quantify how far this distance is. Oh my god. So it's also going to impact Australia. All of these tiny oceanic countries. That must have caused chaos for those. We've hit Hawaii there, gone right through it, and it's making its way all the way over to Asia without a problem. That is mental, isn't it? Think of the disruption caused to humans and animals here. Whoa. Wild World, a world map of nature with 1,642 animals. Took me 3 years to draw. Whoa. It would be criminal if I did not enhance this. Oh, the quality's so good when you get close. Okay, so we're in North America, Canada specifically at the minute. Oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. We could stare at this for hours. So obviously we've got a lot of bears and eagles and bison. Is that a bison over in this area? Oh my God, I love this. This is the best thing I've ever seen. What fantastic drawings. We've got Greenland, so we've got some polar bears, seals, puffins over in Iceland. Oh my God, you must have had to do so much research. We've got a little badger in the United Kingdom. We've got some swans. We've got a moose. Is that a moose? No, it's probably a deer, isn't it? Let's get back in the sea. I like seeing all of the fish swimming about. Oh, this is just incredible, isn't it? This is so, so cool. Look at Australia. Look at the little Tasmanian devil. Look at all the parrots and the koalas, the parakeets and the cassowaries. Oh man, look at the little kiwi down in New Zealand. Fair play to the person that drew this. We've got penguins down in the South Pole. So many different types of penguins too. We've got a little spider. What's he doing down there, cheeky little fella? Look at the cute little penguin family as well. Okay, we're in South America now, and oh, we've got a toucan. I like toucans. So many cool animals down in South America. Let me get to Costa Rica. I'm hyped about that. Oh yeah, we got some little tree frogs. What these things? I can't remember what they're called. We got flamingos. Oh, we got alligators in Florida, and look at all the massive whales in the Atlantic. Ah. That is insane, isn't it? Anton Thomas. That is incredible. That is possibly the greatest thing I've ever seen in this series. The world's 250 million years from now. In 250 million years, continents will collide again to form Pangaea Proxima. New mountains will emerge and the Atlantic Ocean will become a sea. Mount Everest will not be the highest point anymore. That is mental to think about. Will humans still be around 250 million years? You kind of assume not. You know, we've only been around 200,000 years at this point. I guess something will still be around, but surely it won't be what we think of as humans today. You can kind of still make out some of the shape of Australia, South America too, but everything else is just like a big blob of blah 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 blah. Countries banned from the Olympics between 1920 and 2024. Okay, enhance. Alright, Hungary was banned in 1920 due to war. Belarus and Russia were banned in 2024. Obviously, remember that one. Germany was banned 1948, 1924, 1920. A lot of countries have been banned over the years. Japan, Korea, Kuwait, South Africa, Zimbabwe. Mainly due to war, but there's also politics, doping. Taliban's position on women. It's not really political, is it? Countries where leaving your religion is punished. This is something I've not really thought about before. I know that there's some pretty strict religious countries out there, but thinking about getting the death penalty because you don't want to be part of a religion anymore is insane. And that's quite a few countries as well. I don't get how, like, the rest of the world is still allowing this kind of thing. Map of Africa on the year 1880 before the European scramble for Africa. That is sad to think about. Such a diverse continent, and then big white people came in and were like, yeah, we'll have this bit. The most populous countries expected in 2100. Oh, so about 80 years from now. I've not seen data like this before. So USA, 336 million. I think that's actually less than they've got now. Aren't they on about like 350? 330. So actually in 8 years, they're barely changing. China's currently on 1 billion, so they must be really slowing down. India's projected to stick the same. Nigeria, 791 million. Surely that's way higher than right now. Yeah, 200 million currently. Surely that's going to cause a bit of chaos if they really do continue at that rate. Darkest legal front side window tint by state. Oh, I'd love to have my front window tinted. But the UK doesn't let you tint your front window. In the US, though, we can have a good variety of tintage. What does zero mean? Does that mean you're actually allowed to make it completely non-transparent? Surely not, because they've got none up here, which is white, so you're not allowed to tint it. The black must mean you can actually... Nah, that can't be right. Ah, someone's clarified in the comments that they mean the top 4 inches of your front window can be completely black if you want it to be, which I guess makes more sense. Ancestry of US presidents, approximately up to 10 generations in the past. This is really interesting, and I guess it's just a reminder of how young the USA is. You go back 10 generations, and obviously none of them are from the USA. So a lot of US presidents' ancestry comes from the British Isles, which I guess makes sense. Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, George Bush, Ronald Reagan. We have a few from France, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, Denmark, and then some individuals. Kenya for Barack Obama. Obviously, he himself was from Hawaii, though. Poland, Sweden, Spain, Spain, Estonia. That's really interesting. 5G availability by country. Right, this is another enhance. Okay, so the color represents the year at which it was introduced, as opposed to how strong it was. So India have just gotten a lot of 5G coverage, apparently. Most of Europe has 5G these days. I'm in the UK, which I do get 5G sometimes, but a lot of places I go are 4 or 3G still. But that is still far better than the continents of Africa and South America, where there is very little 5G coverage at all. How many Europeans born before World War I are still alive? The maps today are really interesting, aren't they? Just so much stuff I've not really thought about. So we have 16 people in the UK that were born before World War I, which was 1916, right? Oh, it's 1914, Jack. Oh, I knew that as well. Apparently France and Italy still have over 30, and then a lot of Eastern Europe, the numbers are very low for whatever reason. I guess that's because people live longer in these countries than these countries, I suppose, maybe? There's probably more to it than that. So the oldest living person was born in 1907, and they're called Maria, and they live in Spain. Very interesting. The location border of the Great Wall of China. Was it worth the effort? Alright, so that is a really big wall, to be fair. It goes a long way. Do you know, I don't think I've ever seen this on a map. I assumed it went all the way across, but it doesn't. It just stops here. They stopped about halfway. Map of protests from far right in the UK. Violent protests. Yeah, it's riots rather than protests, isn't it? On the 100 arrests have been made after violence as protests organised by far right groups. Yeah, really, really sad and depressing and shocking to see that there's that many people that are that horrible. But I have seen recently they're getting more and more outnumbered by actual nice people, which is good. Virginia's territorial claims over the years. So in 1609, Virginia claimed like all of the USA and Canada, I guess, which is kind of mad to think about. Then they claimed this large chunk of the northeast, and it's just been slowly reducing down to the current state that they've got now since 1863. Regions of Europe, different perspectives considered. Okay, so Northern Europe does actually include the UK and Ireland, which is interesting. I maybe wouldn't have whacked us in that. Western definitely does make sense. Then you've got Eastern, Central, Balkan, Southern. What else do we have? Ah, it's the individual pictures. Central Europe, kind of centered around Czechia. I suppose that makes sense. Western, yep, I'm on board with Western. Eastern as well. Southern, and then finally Balkan. Yeah, I guess it's all a bit of a blur. There's going to be overlap here and there. Busiest railway stations in Europe. Okay, so Gare du Nord in France is the busiest with 245 million visitors. That's kind of crazy. A lot of UK and Germany on this list. So UK's busiest is Waterloo, 177 million. I've been to Waterloo Station once, I think. Germany's busiest is Hamburg with 196 million though. Yeah, Germany definitely dominating the list more than everywhere else. But France taking the #1 spot. Map of the highest points in each US state. Okay, I reckon I've probably not heard of any of these places. Let's see if there's anywhere that I recognize the name of. No. There literally isn't. I don't know any of these mountains. Mount Sunflower sounds nice though. What if Zealandia was above sea level? Yeah, there is like a hidden continent basically under New Zealand, just to the east of Australia, and you can see it's pretty massive. The northern parts will be tropical, and the southern tip must be something like Patagonia. Ah, I would love to see it. New Zealand's already an incredible country with like so much of its own diverse history and wildlife. Zealandia would be magnificent. Global rat distribution map. Alright, now we're getting to some good stuff. So there are rats basically everywhere in the world other than Antarctica, which makes sense, and then areas of the Arctic Circle. So I guess they don't like it too chilly to the little rats. They're so cute, rats, you know. They get a lot of bad rep, but they're incredible little animals. I'm gonna have a pet rat at some point. It's gonna be fantastic. He's gonna sit here while I record videos. Population size of European countries. Okay, so we're not considering actual land. It's literally just how many people live in each country. So you can see that the United Kingdom is pretty packed for its actual size. And Russia, although a massively populated country, comparing how big it is to Germany and the United Kingdom, its population isn't actually that crazy. Countries that have never won a medal in the Olympics. It's weird how they're all kind of around a central region of the earth, isn't it? So a lot of countries in Africa, a lot of the small oceanic and Central American Caribbean countries never won anything. And then in Europe, I guess it's the micro-states like Monaco and Andorra, San Marino, that sort of stuff. I suppose it makes sense that smaller countries with small populations are going to be less likely to have globally talented Olympic athletes, but not always impossible. When did women get the right to vote in Europe? So a lot of countries, it was around 1918, 1919. Russia was actually 1 year earlier than the UK, which is interesting, isn't it? You can see it was pretty late for France, 1944, but even later for Switzerland, 1971. That's crazy. That is horrific. How many wild alligators are there in each US state? Oh, here we go. So for most US states, it's 0. Like literally no alligators at all. But things pop off in the south. Texas, Louisiana, and Florida in particular. What is that, 1.3 million? It is, 1.3 million in Florida, 400,000 in Texas, which I didn't know. I knew there was alligators in Florida. And then all of these states have some. Louisiana, though, 2 million. Why is there so many alligators in Louisiana? I want to see a picture of one. Yeah, there we go. What a cutie. Transcontinental cities. This is cities that span 2 continents. Okay, and there's actually quite a few, apparently. So Istanbul is probably the only one I would have known about, which is Europe and Asia, obviously, in Turkey. Orenburg in Russia is apparently part of Europe as well as Asia. Okay, so it must be right on the cusp there, I see. Suez makes sense. Africa and Asia. That's where the Suez Canal is. Almeria in Spain. That's something I've never heard of. It's an island in the Mediterranean considered African. Okay. A lot of continents like Oceania don't have any transcontinental cities. Okay, cool. Doggerland around 10,000 BC. This is another sort of forgotten continent or area of land, whatever you want to call it. So before the sea levels rose, the United Kingdom was actually connected with a lot of Europe. And there's so much more land around the Netherlands and Denmark. You can see that red is what the land is like now. But yeah, you just can't imagine it, can you? And that was only 10,000 years ago. Average savable income by country in Europe. So I think this means that in the United Kingdom, on average, people are able to save 36% of their salary, as in like whack it in a savings account and use it later. But the thing is, I don't like these kind of maps because the data includes like the super rich at the top, which distorts most of the data in like the 95%, and it makes people look way better off than they actually are, which then makes governments look better, even though they're causing a real faff on. But that is particularly sad when you consider that a lot of these eastern countries, they're actually in the minuses, where people aren't actually able to save anything and they're just in debt, which is obviously really, really sad. Europe's favorite TV shows. Ooh, go on then. What's ours then? Sherlock? Nah, Sherlock was good, you know, it was fine. But favorite TV show of all time for the average British person? Nah. There's definitely better British-made TV shows than Sherlock. Can I think of any? No. The red area is home to 0.9% of Australia's population, 243,000 people. The vast majority of those people are concentrated at a few outback towns, leaving practically the entire area truly wild. Yeah, that's crazy to think about. So much of Australia just isn't inhabited, like a huge portion of it. Australia is a similar size to Europe, so think about how much land that actually is. Depth of Lake Baikal. Ah, get this full screened. This is so cool looking. It's like a 3D map, 3D topography. This is such a cool way to accurately represent the place. Biggest company per region. Okay, so North America has Microsoft worth 3 trillion. Fair enough. I thought Apple were high, but apparently not. South America have Petrobras. Not heard of, but they are an oil and gas company. Okay. In Europe, it's Novo Nordisk, which is a pharmaceutical company. Africa has Naspers, which is technology company. Think of the difference there. 31 billion, which is obviously a colossal amount of money, but it's not very much compared to 3 trillion. We've got oil and gas for Asia and mining and gas for Oceania. So oil and gas still really globally dominating, which is a bit sad really considering their fossil fuels. Biggest postcode in Australia, brackets the world. Yeah, surely that cannot be beaten. So this postcode is used in an area of Australia that is probably the size of like Germany, United Kingdom, France, Spain all shoved together. And they all have the same postcode, basically, because there's probably about 3 houses in there. That's so interesting. And look at all of these other huge postcode zones too. A lighthouse map of France. Ah, say that's pretty. Get a little zoom in on here. Look at the pretty lights going down. It's all about perspective. Ooh, so this is the Mediterranean Sea, but flipped this way. So if we go ahead and flip this, it's super recognizable. We've got Italy, we've got Turkey. But it's actually really interesting to see it this way up, because it does look totally different. Germany's economy equals all of these countries combined. That is crazy. 4.6 trillion, which is the same as all of these other countries added together. Germany is raking it in. I would not have expected Norway, Sweden, and Finland to be included in this. Germany is loaded, it turns out. Most common means of transport to work by county in America, and it is driving alone in a car every single way. Apart from areas of Alaska where it's walking, I suppose that makes sense, Alaska being so rural. That's crazy though. And it's the fact that it specifies driving alone in a car, and there'll be such big cars that are so unnecessarily large. Oh, there is actually a teeny tiny bit of orange right there. That's public transportation. It's a shame that not more of this is public transportation, because obviously it's so much better for the world than driving by yourself in your metal box. But it's crazy to see how dominating that is. Roads of the Roman Empire. Oh, that looks epic. Get a little enhance here. Look at how much of England and Wales they absolutely dominated. There'll be so many of these roads everywhere still just in full use. People not even realizing they were built like 2,000 years ago. Look how many roads came out of Rome as well. They're really dominating that area. That is crazy. Most countries have been colonized by Europe. Okay, so this is Europe. Fair enough. Then the dark blue is places that were at some point colonized or controlled by Europe, and it's basically everywhere. Some areas have been partially controlled or at least influenced by Europe, and then there are very few places in the world that have never been colonized by Europe at all. The Koreas and Japan being 3 examples. That is insane, isn't it? This is not a map I think is epic. The percentage of homes with air conditioning across the world. Oh, I would love air conditioning. I would go mad for air conditioning. I've got this fan, and it doesn't even do the job. My camera still overheats. So 10% of Europe have got air conditioning. I would be interested to see UK specifically. Less than 5% of homes in the United Kingdom have air conditioning. Well, there you go. It's just not common at all here. Like, I will admit, I'm a pretty well-off guy. I still don't have air conditioning. Whereas 90% of the USA have got air conditioning in their homes. Oh, what a dream. And I know a lot of USA is warmer than Europe, but a lot of areas have got a similar climate. Why do we not have air conditioning? Quite a bit of Asia have air conditioning. Obviously, areas like Japan, it's kind of essential at frequent points throughout the year. I feel sorry for the 9% that do not have air conditioning. But 90% USA, that's crazy. The Ivy League universities of the USA. So I don't know much about Ivy League universities at all. When I think of Cornell, I think of Andy from The Office. And when I think of Yale and Harvard, I think of Rory from Gilmore Girls. They're literally my only points of reference to what I'm sure are very impressive educational systems. Christianity in the Middle East. Okay, obviously we know Christianity in the Middle East is not particularly common, but it is most common in Cyprus at 78%. Obviously there's a bit of debate about if Cyprus is in the Middle East or not. Egypt higher than I would expect, 10%. And then everywhere else, pretty much what you would think. We've got 0.2% for Yemen, basically nothing. 4.4% Saudi Arabia, and presumably a lot of these are just people that aren't from this country originally as well. When does a woman have her first child? Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so the average in the UK is at age 29, which, yeah, I know people that have had children around that age. In Ireland, it's a bit higher at 31. Interesting. And it does seem like pretty much everywhere the numbers are actually quite close. Like, what is the lowest we've got here? Is it Bulgaria at 26.6? Oh no, Moldova, 25 years old. Now, when I think about me at 25, I do not think about me having a child. Like, if you're a young person, 25, you assume sounds like an adult, but trust me, when you are 25, you do not feel like an adult. But I honestly thought that in areas of Europe, the numbers would be much lower, so I suppose it's actually kind of nice to see, and I think it'll probably just keep getting a bit higher as well. But obviously, I know it does get more difficult to get pregnant when you sort of get into your 30s. Where you're most likely to get a speeding ticket. Oh, that's an interesting bit of data. So I suppose this will be a combination of things. It will be roads that people just really want to drive fast on, but also it'll just be areas with increased CCTV or stricter rules. And you can see it is kicking off in Ohio. You don't want to be speeding about in Ohio. That's what we're learning. The sign says 55, and by God, they mean 55. I hate driving across Ohio. So like I said, they must just be really, really strict there. Countries using the euro. Do you know what? I've been wanting a map like this. So most of Europe are now on the euros. Okay, cool. A few places are using it without EU approval, which is interesting. It looks like it's Montenegro and Macedonia. There's a few countries that aren't in the EU, but they're still using the euro. Obviously, the United Kingdom is still using the Great British Pound. What a surprise. Meant that I got charged up the wazoo on my debit card when I had my little trip in Ireland last week. Countries where X brackets Twitter is blocked. All right, it's blocked in Russia, China, North Korea. I would not expect anything less. It's also blocked in Myanmar, Turkmenistan, Nigeria, Iran, and recently it's being blocked in Brazil. I mean, in my opinion, Twitter has gone downhill a lot. It just feels like it's getting far more right-wing. I don't really enjoy it at all anymore. Whoa, this map hurts your eyes to look at. Is your nation's capital the nearest national capital? Oh, it's so wacky looking. Okay, so basically what this means is if you live anywhere in this blue area of the United Kingdom, London is your closest capital. But if you dip into the red, even though you're still in the United Kingdom, your closest capital is actually Dublin in another country, and it works the same everywhere. Obviously, Iceland, Reykjavik is nowhere near anywhere else. Moscow takes up a pretty big chunk up here. This is interesting, isn't it? How do you make a map like this? It must be so difficult. Map of British dialects. Ooh, okay, here we go. Right, well, let's zoom into where I'm from, which is County Durham. So County Durham definitely does have its own accent, but it is similar to the Geordie accent. It is just not quite as strong. And I think people from down south would probably just have assumed that I was a Geordie. There's also an area called Smoggy, which despite me being here, I do not recognize what that word is. Most accents are named after the county that they are in, but but there are a few exceptions, such as Cockney. Also potteries, which I've never heard of. We've got Scouse, a very famous accent, and apparently Barry, near Cardiff, has its own accent as well. I do love British accents. There is such an incredible variety, despite it being a pretty small place. Frequency of red hair in Europe. This just shows how crazily rare red/ginger hair actually is. It's basically just Ireland and Scotland, and a little bit of Wales as well, and then this area of Russia, which is interesting. I did not know that. Over 10% of people in this area of Russia, is this Moscow maybe, have red hair, but everywhere else, it's a pretty rare thing. You know, we've got a lot of 5 to 9%, and then mainly 1 to 2%. It really is way more rare than I realized, just because a lot of people around me do have red hair, so I don't think of it as that crazy. Well, this sounds crazy. I just traveled to a remote village in Armenia to explore a virtually unknown megalithic avenue, thought to be 6,000 to 8,000 years old. What I found was an incredible, mysterious site lying in plain sight for thousands of years. Oh my god. Okay, so this is the area over in Armenia, and this is what it looks like. So it's basically just ruins from, you know, 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. And here it is from a bird's eye view, lying in plain sight, but I suppose because it's such a rural area of Armenia, no one's really been to it. That's crazy. Egypt population density. This is always really cool to see. So basically, everyone in Egypt just lives around the Nile, because this is the exact route of the Nile, and then you've got Cairo and Alexandria at the top. Obviously, so much of Egypt is like desert, basically the Sahara. How many US counties have a population greater than the state of Wyoming? Here is Wyoming for your reference. As you can see, it's bloody massive, and it's very square as well, but you can see there are so many places dotted about, despite being far smaller in terms of land size, that have a larger population. 582,000. A 3D figure of the Tokyo metro system map. Whoa. Well, they go downwards? Of course they do, but look at that. It's like a roller coaster. Obviously, Tokyo's absolutely ginormous, so I suppose I can't get my head around this, actually. There are some big dips. I know that obviously, like, metro systems, lots of them are underground, but some of this is so steep. They can't actually be that steep, right? World's 25 largest lakes side by side. Brackets, I didn't know the Caspian Sea counted as a lake. Well, apparently it does, and you can see it is way bigger than everywhere else. That's a sea. That's not a lake. Other honorable mentions: Lake Superior, Lake Victoria, Great Bear Lake, Lake Malawi, Great Slave Lake. Not sure about the name of that one. So many of these lakes are in North America, aren't they? This carpet is made to look like a satellite map. That is hideous. I mean, it's epic, but you wouldn't want it in your living room. Harris versus Trump, ad spending and percentage of rallies per state. Whoa, they are spending crazy money. So they've each spent over $100 million on their advertising in Pennsylvania. That's mental, by the way. That is so much money. It's crazy, isn't it, how much kind of finances influence politics, and, you know, if you've just got way more money, you can just spread your message way easier. Brasilia in Brazil has direct flights to all state capitals. That is a lot of different state capitals. Fair play, Brasilia Airport. There's 644,000 public transport stops of France. That is a lot of public transport spots. They've pretty much got everywhere covered there. I guess a bit bare in the middle, but there's probably not that much going on there. 3 years ago, I spent too much time drawing one map. Whoa, I think we're gonna need an enhance. Oh my god, whoa. That's absolutely crazy. Is it, like, actually accurate, or have you just made it up? A lot of it's called swamps. I think it's just made up, because there's just random words like potato leek soup lake. It's just a bit of fun. Oh my goodness, it looks incredible though, doesn't it? I like it a lot. It's so unbelievably detailed though. Australia is an archipelago divided by land instead of water. Very true. Basically, it is inaccessible for more or less 90% of the country. Everyone's just living by the coast, and then obviously Perth over here is really split up from everywhere else. You can't completely safely drive from city to city, and it's also just way more efficient to get flights. Literal meanings of English counties. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Might require our last enhance. Okay, so Northumberland translates to land north of the Hummer. Ah, god, this is amazing. North Yorkshire is Northshire of the place of yew trees. Okay. Where I'm from, County Durham, county of the Hill Island. Didn't know there was a Hill Island, but that's nice. Over in Cumbria, it's land of the fellow countrymen. Norfolk and Suffolk are North people and South people. East Sussex, East Saxons. Oh, this is amazing. Cornwall is foreigners of the Horn. Devon is Shire of the Domnonny people. Oh, this is amazing. This is so interesting to look through. Place at the Unformidable River, and that's London. Oh my goodness. Southern District, Shire of the Home Farm, Shire of the Willow Farm. This must go back such a long way. Shire of the Northerly Home Farm. Basically everywhere in the United Kingdom's county is just named after some guy's farm. Alright, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for watching. We're gonna end off there. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, click that subscribe button, because I'd really love to get to 2 million one day. Alright, thanks. See you later.